Welcome into the Bruce Arians Show. Casey Phillips here with head coach Bruce Arians. And man, you guys were able to force 5 turnovers against a team that was leading the league in turnover margin. That's got to be one of those stats that you take particular pride in as a coach.
Oh, there's no doubt. You know, going into the game, we knew we had to win the turnover battle on the road and eliminate penalties, and pretty much did a hell of a job of that.
Yeah, I mean, 4 penalties, which is the fewest in a road game you guys have had thus far. So what do you think was the difference? What worked so well in that game for you guys to play so clean?
I think just a little more attention to detail. And, you know, a couple were young players who had just gotten in there, Nick Leverett, and he did a hell of a job stepping in for Aaron Stinney, who was stepping in for Ali Marpet. And, you know, we keep saying next man up, but they all did a hell of a job.
Yeah, I mean, next man and then the next man. It's the next man squared at this point with what you guys have been going through. What do you think is especially the importance of the turnovers for this defense, what they have done so well to be able to force them? And I mean, you guys are 8-0 under you when you force 3 or more. So they're a pretty big indicator of the success of the team. And why have you guys been able to have success in that area? What have you noticed?
Well, I think our defense, they're ball hawks, and they do a good job of stripping, especially Levante. He sets the standard for it, you know, of punching the ball out and recovering it. And Shaq does a great job of stripping the quarterback. And, you know, our DB's catching the ball on interceptions, but our offense taking those turnovers and turning them into touchdowns. That's huge. That's a big difference.
Yeah, it's one thing to get the turnover, it's another to capitalize on it. And Mike Edwards had the forced fumble, which this is, I feel like, the first time we're talking about a turnover with him that isn't an interception falling in his lap, thanks to other people, him creating one over there. Tell us about that play, and of course recovered by Levante, as you mentioned. Tell us about that play and what made you proud.
Yeah, again, just does a great job of being aware the ball was and stripping it. Good tackle and stripping the ball, and then obviously Mike made that game-saving play at the end of the game.
Yeah, that's a big one. And yeah, Levante, 17 fumble recoveries since entering the league in 2012, most in the NFL during that span. Definitely has an eye for the ball in that area. And Antoine Winfield, okay, I got to hear your take on this interception. Was it as impressive to you as it was to what I felt like was everyone else watching this game, that that's the play that maybe it wasn't necessarily the most important play of the game? You could make an argument for it, but it was, I mean, it was pretty fun to watch as a fan.
It was one of them, yeah, to outduel a 6'4" receiver with great hands, you know, and if I'm the quarterback, because I'm throwing it to my guy, you know, and to be battling downfield, to go up over the top of him and then still catch it. That was the most impressive part, going up over top, still catching it, getting a good return. So yeah, that was one of the plays of the game.
When they talk about 50-50 balls, I feel like that's such a misnomer for especially a matchup like that. When you would say 5'9" versus 6'4" doesn't feel 50-50. It feels more like 75-25. So for him to come away with that was incredible. And after the game, Gronk called Winfield one of the most underrated guys on the team. Would you agree with that?
Oh, totally. You know, I don't think Antoine gets all the credit he deserves. You know, his rookie year was fantastic, and he's just building off of it.
And I know that you guys only allowed 19 yards in the first quarter, which especially during a time when just people started dropping like flies again, which I imagine for you is starting to feel a little bit of a Groundhog Day moment of when that happens. It was the second fewest of any quarter this season, and there were even some really, you know, rough field position spots included in that. What do you feel like the defense was doing so well early on, even down a few men?
Yeah, they took the challenge of stopping the run. Our defensive line played lights out against the run, but one of the best offensive lines and best running team in the league. But we're also the best run defense, so there was a lot of pride involved, and our guys did a hell of a job. You know, Devin goes down early. Kevin stepped in and just did. That's the way he plays. He loves playing against the run anyway, so it was more of his style game. Devin did come back, but no, that was a great tempo setter because we gave him great field position and we held him to a field goal. That was awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, this was the storyline of the game, right? Was Jonathan Taylor, people talking about him as a potential MVP candidate against the #1 run defense in the whole league. And you had held him to 30 yards on the first 9 carries before that last big drive. So what did you guys do well against him in particular that a lot of other teams haven't been able to do? And then what on that last drive where he ended up with 58 yards on that one drive alone, what switched then and what had worked well and then didn't work that drive?
Yeah, early we were playing good disciplined gap control defense. That last drive, guys were trying to do a little too much, got out of their gaps. And if you get out of your gap, he's going to find it. And he did in that drive.
Talk about people who are good at filling their gap. Vita Vea, pretty solid at that, but unfortunately now has a gap in the teeth. I wanted to hear whenever you heard about that happening. When did you find out, and what did you say, if anything, to him?
I really didn't find out until I was in the press conference. And as I said, he's got a mouthful. He doesn't need a half of one.
Yeah, he can spare that.
Yeah.
No big deal. How important was it to have him back in particular for this game and some of the plays where he's in there versus not when he sat out a little bit dealing with the tooth? What do you see as the difference in what that makes for this defense?
He's an immovable force. I mean, he's not going backwards. And Sue played one of his best games. Nacho, when those guys are going forward, and that offensive line's not getting any push, their running back feels it real quick.
And what did you think about the third down defense? It was so interesting, especially early. They were getting incredible stops on third and short, but then giving up 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15. What was going on the third down defense?
Yeah, just really, our inside linebackers were jumping some under routes and giving them, and we didn't get enough pressure. But the big one was the 3rd and 15. When we let it scramble out of there and we're playing man coverage, that can't happen.
You mentioned Devin sitting out some. I know he had dealt with the quad injury going into the game, and then it ended up being a hip that was the issue during the game, sat out for a bit, came back in some. Where does he stand injury-wise? What do you guys know at this point?
I really don't know much. We'll see Wednesday when we go up and practice and what he can do and gradually work him through the week. And if he can play, he'll play. But if not, we're going to sit him out.
And you do feel good with Kevin Minter filling in. What are some of the differences or the things that you may need to change, or do you need to change anything with Minter versus Devin in there?
No, we don't change anything. It's just you're losing a Pro Bowl player. We'd get a solid player in returning Kevin Minter, but it's not Devin.
And when we talked earlier about the potential for whether or not Winfield's interception was the game-changing play or most important play, I think most people would make an argument for the Shaq strip sack recovered fumble. Would you agree that was the turning point of the game?
To me, that was the turning point. That changed the whole tide on the sideline. And then go get the touchdown, then the pick, another answer. That was it. But those two plays really changed the whole game.
And tell us about that play and how unique it is what Shaq was able to do. I mean, a sack is one thing, a strip sack, and then recovering it himself and what it showed about his athletic ability.
Yeah, Shaq can really bend, and when he gets that outside arm free, he's always very aware of where that arm of the quarterback is, and he's got great reaction time as far as just swatting it out of his hand, and then it did bounce back to him, luckily. And,
yeah, that's helpful.
That helps.
And he has 11 strip sacks since joining the Bucs in 2019. That is the most in the NFL during that span. I mean, when you have him, and then we talked about Levante and the fumble recoveries, I mean, you got a couple guys in there that are torching the league when it comes to finding and causing loose footballs.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, and that's two of the best in the league.
And I know that both of Shaq's sacks also had pressure from the D-line that helped him in those scenarios. Nacho was on one and Sue as well. And then Sue also got a sack himself. We talk so much about the D-line in terms of the run game. What did you see in terms of their play in past situations? Yeah,
I thought we had really good pressure most of the day. A couple of those long third downs, we didn't. We dropped 8 one time and didn't get enough pressure, and they converted it. But I thought the defensive line really were the stars of the defense in this game.
And then finally, how did you feel about the play of your corners? We talked a little bit about the safeties earlier on in the segment, but what about the play of your corners, especially, again, Jamel Dean goes out hurt, and you're having to play a lot of different backups as well. So what did you think of them?
I think we did a by far and large job of keeping it in front of us, but we were a little too soft. We weren't aggressive enough, and we gave up the one chunk play for a touchdown. That can't happen.
All right, well, we still have more coming up here on the Bruce Arians Show, continuing to talk about that win against the Colts and looking forward to the Falcons game. We'll be right back. Welcome back into the Bruce Arians Show. Casey Phillips here with head coach Bruce Arians. Wanted to talk a little bit about special teams. I know that definitely Pinion would love to have that first one back. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened on that play, and then, of course, also a penalty on it?
Yeah, there was a bunch of stuff going on, and they've blocked a few kicks this year, and I think he got a little concerned and tried to hurry up his operation, didn't catch it clean, shanked it, and gave him great field position, and we had a holding penalty to boot on the twist inside, so it wasn't a great start for our kicking teams.
And yeah, just overall with the special teams and the coverage units, I know there was, of course, the huge kick return at the very end of the game that probably gave you a partial heart attack like it did all the rest of us. What happened on that return, and then just overall, what did you think of your coverage teams in the game?
I thought we were poor. I think they outran us and out-hit us. But that's one of the few times on our special teams we got beat. And we had one decent return, but that was about it. And then, my fault. Kicking it deep on that last kickoff. We should have squibbed it down there, especially with him in the back line of the end zone. We knew he's coming out. Either pooch it or put it on the ground, and we went ahead and tried to kick it out of the back of the end zone. It didn't work.
And you mentioned the return game. I know Darden was evaluated for a concussion at one point, and now Mickens is no longer on the team. So what are some of our different return man options, the depth chart there, and just overall how you feel about the return game currently?
Yeah, we'll see where Jalen is and in the protocol, but Scotty's been working on it for 2 years, and he'll probably take the primary punt return duties, and Gio will take kickoff return duties.
And then how do you feel about the way that the returns have looked so far this year? I know, and even the decision making of when you guys bring it out and when you don't. I know there was, a point that Darden only got it out to the 16 out of the end zone. How do you make some of those decisions on when you want guys bringing it out and the strategy there?
Well, a lot of it's just them knowing where they're out on the field. And those high bloop kicks to the goal line are really hard to judge. You're going to bring those out because you're not really sure where your feet are, because you can't look down. You got to keep your eyes on the ball. And we got to do a better job. We got outran in this game. They ran past our one-on-one blocks, and we got to do a better job.
I wanted to hear what this game told you about your team, especially now you guys are 4-0 in close games this year. So what that tells you about your team in a game like this one where you were down so much of it and so many different things didn't go well early on that you still pulled it out and on the road.
Yeah, I like the resiliency and the look in the eye of the guys in the locker room at halftime. We had just given up that long drive for a touchdown to go down 10, and there was no panic. It's just a matter of who's going to step up and make a play. And when we make that play, snowball it. And that's exactly what we did.
All right, well, we have more coming up here on the Bruce Arians Show, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back into the Bruce Arians Show. We talked about the defense earlier on. Now I wanted to talk a little bit more offensively. Pretty opposite start from last game. We had talked about how great it was. That first drive was such precision the week before and came out so hot. And then this game, it was a rough start for both offenses, frankly. We have 9 possessions in the first quarter. Things are going a little bit crazy there. So what felt like was the early struggles offensively that then were able to come in a little bit later?
Yeah, some of it was noise and communications, and obviously Aaron getting hurt, Stiddy. But yeah, we got to do a better job on third downs early in games and making first downs, so we stayed out of third down. Last week's drive, no third downs. Make first downs on first and second and keep rolling. And in this one we didn't. And that's been a problem on the road, and it's always a problem on the road just because it's so different. When you can't hear everybody talking, just like the left guard talking to the left tackle, sometimes it's so loud they can't hear it. And that communication is very, very important.
Was there miscommunication on a couple of those early throws to Gronk and one to Mike where it didn't seem like he was even expecting the ball at that point? What happened on a couple of those early plays? Yeah,
they brought a blitz. We didn't handle it real well. Tom just got it out of his hand, and Mike hadn't even crossed yet. And so, yeah, a couple of those happened early. The pass rush was effective, making us throw it way too quick.
Yeah, and Gronk, definitely whatever miscommunication might have happened early, that got figured out. 123 yards for him. I saw a lot of people posting that it looked like vintage Gronk, which, he responded like, "Oh, I'm vintage, how exciting." But it did feel like one of those games where, this could have been at any point in his career, and not just getting those yards, but fighting through really tough tackles and getting those yards after catch. What impressed you most about his performance and just why this was the game that he was able to have it?
Well, we felt like he'd have some success in the middle of the field, and we had one really good play where he went down the sideline. But I think the biggest play for me was, they blitzed and we had a side adjustment. Scotty Miller did a heck of a job blocking out there, and Chris and Grant ran over about 3 guys and got that big first down. I think, to me, that was one of the best plays offensively.
And then another guy that, Fournette, what can you say about that game by him in 131 yards from scrimmage, 4 touchdowns, career high, and matched the most touchdowns from scrimmage by any player in franchise history in a game. So tell me what worked for him this game, and again, what are you most proud of a performance like that?
Yeah, the overall consistency that Leonard played with, and he gave a hell of a speech at halftime. But he's been very, very consistent for about a month, and it's showing up, and he's doing a great job. People are really sinking their coverages, making us dink and dunk. Well, when we dink and dunk it to Lenny and to Gronk, that's 10, 11, 12 yards, so we'll take it every time.
Absolutely. And I would love to hear about this idea of this halftime speech and thinking about where Fournette has come from when he joined this team to now in terms of the kind of player he is, maybe off the field or as a leader, outside of just those X's and O's of what he's doing in scoring touchdowns.
Yeah, it's a rare move for him to jump out there like that, but he did it at the right time and had the right things to say that they hit home with a lot of the guys. But with the performance, that speaks. So he backed it up really, really well.
Yeah, he did. Tell us from the touchdowns, what do you feel like is specifically worked well in those plays for him?
Well, the first touchdown catch was just a real well designed. He flew out of the backfield and outflanked him, caught it, and the tackle trap was a hell of a run, but it was a great block by Donnie, and so he pinned it and got through that little crack. And then the last one, I should have told him to fall down. And when we called that play, I said, "Oh, this could go." And we're really looking for 10 yards and take about 15, 20 more seconds off the clock. And I didn't really communicate it well enough to everybody for him not to score.
I think that's a good sign for your offense when you're scoring when you don't mean to. I think that's probably a good problem to have. Would you agree?
Thank God there were only 20 seconds left.
That's true. Only 20 more seconds for you to be sweating at that point. And you mentioned the idea of losing, not having Ali Marpet, then Stinney going down so early. So first of all, tell us about the game plan. When did you know you wouldn't have Ali and how that affected things? And then when you lose Stinney, the play of Leverett, just that whole position and what that was like.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't know about Ali till ready to take off on the plane and Saturday, and he just said, "I can't do it." And we were hoping because closer and closer. We'll see what we're dealing with this week. Then Aaron does something to his patellar tendon, 10th play of the game. So, Nick hasn't played, but we like the way Nick plays. He plays with a lot of effort, energy, and it's not all perfect, but he gave us a heck of an effort.
Yeah, for that to be his first NFL snaps, how did you feel like he played as compared to expectations?
I thought it was outstanding for him to now there's a lot of communication. That's Donnie's third guy playing next to him. It's like some of that communication wasn't happening. I'm just trying to do my job. I can't talk to you, man.
Yeah, leave me alone.
So we'll grow in that area.
And then Scotty being able to return to action after he's been hurt for quite a while, and he recovers this muffed kick, big play to announce that he is back on the field. How did you feel about his play and just what it meant to have him back out there for both offensive snaps and special teams?
Yeah, special teams. He's probably our 8th flyer. I mean, he hasn't really ever done it, but he does have speed, and he was at the right time, the right spot at the right time, and got down there and recovered the fumble. Got a huge pass interference call too when on that long pass play.
And then what happened on the interception thrown to him? It seemed like that was another kind of miscommunication on his route.
Yeah, that's something you cannot do. You can't start in and then go out, and the quarterback throws it, and then you go back in. And the guy really cut him off, did a hell of a job, but you got to keep going outside where that ball is going to be thrown to and break it up.
And then I know we talked a little bit about what the defense was doing, but Chris and Mike held to 24 and 16 yards. What were some of the biggest things that the defense was doing to keep them in check?
Yeah, just a lot of soft coverage, double coverage around them, and no need to force it. And we had them open some. Sometimes the reads just don't send you there.
Yep. All right. Well, we still have one more segment coming up. We're going to look ahead to that Falcons game, so don't go anywhere. Time for the final segment here on the Bruce Arians Show. Casey Phillips here with head coach Bruce Arians, taking on the Falcons for the second time this year. How do you feel like they're different maybe than the last time we played them, or how are we different in terms of this matchup looking not exactly the same as back then?
A lot of different players on both sides. Both of us have had a bunch of injuries, but they're still. Matty Ryan's playing at a really high level. I mean, they're moving the ball on everybody. They had the one poor game against Dallas, but they're moving the ball, and defensively, I think they've really started to grow as a defense under Dean Pease, and it's going to be a heck of a challenge.
When you're facing a team for the second time and it's division opponents that tend to know each other pretty well, what do you do as a coach in that idea of how much are you wanting to change? How much are you trying to throw new looks out there? Or how much is it just about executing what you already did the first time?
Both. You can't do leave what you do best. You still have to do that. And if it's known, you still, hey, we're coming right here, stop us.
Yeah.
And other things, you have to have a new game plan. Yeah, it's always different, And thank God it's not within 3 weeks like we will with Carolina, like we did with Atlanta last year. It's one thing to play them and 2 weeks later play them again, but this has been a long time and a lot of change from both teams.
Was there something in this game against Indianapolis that you feel like now they're can be that shift to winning on the road, or because there were still some of those early struggles, do you think that there still needs to be that change to really play the way you want to on the road?
Not really. There's going to be early struggles. It always has been when fans were in the stands.
Yeah.
Last year there was no fans in the stands, so it was easy to just go out there and play. And but it's always been that way. That's the history of the game. It's overcoming it, and as the game goes on, taking over the game on the road and making plays to win games, and hopefully eliminating those penalties, get a +3 turnover ratio. You're going to win a lot of games on the road.
And then finally, it is the My Cause, My Cleats game, and I wanted to hear, are you getting shoes done, and if so, for what cause?
Yeah, my cause is always Guardian Ad Litem, Kids Voice, and the Arians Family Foundation. So trying to help all the children in foster care and in the court systems that need our help.
And I always know you support your wife's cause, so I always try to help you get the brownie points on the show by getting to talk about it, right? That's still as a coach, that's the most important, right?
No doubt.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us on this edition of the Bruce Arians Show. We'll see you next week.